Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with City Chicken. That's right, and by chicken, of course, I mean pork, because what City Chicken is actually a mock chicken drumstick. And believe it or not, back in the day, cooks in big cities didn't always have access to inexpensive chicken. So what they do when they were craving some chicken legs is they'd skewer scraps of pork into a sort of chicken leg-like structure, and they would have what they called city chicken. But anyway, let me show you how to put this together, and it starts with one of these, a pork tenderloin. Pork shoulder is more often used, but I really like pork tenderloin for this. So delicious and very chicken-like. This has already been fully trimmed of silver skin, and we're pretty much just going to slice this thing across, but I do want to cut the middle section, that widest, thickest section, in half. So I'm going to cut off the top right about here, and I'm going to make one more cut right about there. And I'm going to take that center piece, which like I said is the thickest piece, and cut that right down the center, and then we can start slicing. And we'll start with this top piece. That was the most irregular piece. So I'm just going to cut that in kind of small chunks like you see here. That's actually going to be the bottom of the drumstick. So that's all we need to do there. Super precise knife skills here, not required. So that's good news for almost all of you. All right, next up we'll grab that center piece that we split in half lengthwise, and we'll cut that straight down and across like that into, I don't know, what are those, about 1/2 inch thick? 3/8? 7/16? I'm not exactly sure, but that's what the video's for. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with that third tail section. Just slice it down across like that. And then once our pork's cut up, I'm going to lay it out. And I know this looks bizarre, but trust me, there's a method to my madness. So I'm going to make 6 rows with my slices. I'm going to make 6 skewers. And the top row closest to you, that's going to be the top of my drumstick. And then those middle rows will be the middle of the drumstick. And then those smaller irregular chunks closest to me will be the base of the drumstick. And no, you really don't have to do this step. You can just thread those on there any which way you want. But as you'll see here, as I start to skewer these, this method is going to increase your chances for the most chicken drumstick-like look possible. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to skewer towards the top. And of course, we're going to keep that meat pretty centered. We do not want this slipping off the end when we fry it. So that looks pretty good just like that. So I went ahead and I did the other 5. And you can kind of see here, because I did lay out that meat earlier, the centers are a little thicker than the tops and bottoms. And that's exactly what we're looking for. And then after our chicken is skewered, we're going to go ahead and season it up. And I'm going to do that with a generous sprinkling of kosher salt, some freshly ground black pepper, quite possibly a little shake of cayenne, and then just a little bit of dried thyme. Very traditional poultry seasoning. And of course, once we season that side, we're going to go ahead and turn these over and do the same thing to the other side. Like I've said before, only a psychopath only seasons one side of the meat. And then once those are fully seasoned, we are ready for the standard and very classic breading station. So we'll start with the flour, and we will generously flour that all over. Be very thorough. But having said that, once you're thorough, make sure you shake off the excess. And then we're going to dip that in our egg, roll it around in that a little bit, make sure it's totally coated. And then the last stop is in the breadcrumbs. You could use regular or you could use panko. And by the way, that's exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it. And then unless you want to get your hands really messed up, make sure you kind of coat it with breadcrumbs before you start handling it too much. And once that's been thoroughly coated with the crumbs, we'll go ahead and put that on the plate. And then check this out. We're going to go down near the bottom and kind of press those smaller pieces near the end together to form what you have to admit kind of looks like a chicken leg. That would fool most people in a city. And I went ahead and I finished my other 5. And once those were all breaded and kind of formed into objects that vaguely resemble a chicken leg, we're going to go ahead and pop that in the fridge uncovered for 15 minutes. I want to let that breading kind of tighten up, kind of set a little bit before we fry these. And then after 15 minutes, we're going to go ahead and heat our oil and fry. So I got a nice cast iron pan on medium-high heat. And we're going to, of course, wait till that gets hot before we start frying. And you know, you can test with a few breadcrumbs if you want. So mine was getting there. So I waited another minute. Another tip, the surface of the oil will be shimmering. See how it's shimmering? So that looks good. So we're going to add our chicken at this point. And of course, the only problem focusing on oil shimmering is now my chicken's out of focus. Hey, but at least it's overexposed. All right, but don't worry. There's buttons on the camera. Let me find the right one. And there we go. So we're going to add our chicken to the hot oil. And then we're simply going to fry that until it's beautifully golden brown on all sides and cook through. And by the way, I'm not leaving them on one side too long. As soon as I saw the bottom was getting golden, I turned them. And I'll leave it on that side for a minute or two, and I'll turn it. And then I'll leave it on that side for a minute or two, and I'll turn it. So I'm making sure all the sides are cooking nice and evenly. So for me, I like to stand right there and turn them often. All right, if you just want to go like 4 or 5 minutes per side, I'm sure that would work too. But you know, old Chef John likes to play with his food. So I do like to keep turning mine around and manipulating them with reckless abandon. So that's what I did until right about here when I realized those are done. Get them out of the pan. and possibly onto a paper towel to drain. All right, so we're going to pull those out of the oil, and then we want to let those rest about 5 minutes before serving. And while we're waiting, we might as well give them a little extra sprinkle with salt. I mean, it might not need it, up to you. You are, of course, in charge of making your city chicken finger licking. And at that point, your city chicken is ready to eat. I'm going to serve mine with a little bit of honey mustard. And you can see it really does have a chicken leg-like look. And by the way, I know we got a lot of kids that watch these videos with their parents. This would be a really fun one for the kids to help you with. I mean, come on, little kids with sharp sticks skewering raw chicken. What could go wrong? And not only does it sort of look like a chicken drumstick, but it actually tastes, pardon the cliche, like chicken. Just a beautiful texture, a beautiful flavor, very, very poultry-like. So anyway, there you go, city chicken, just a very delicious and interesting part of American culinary history. If you've ever been gnawing on a chicken leg and said to yourself, this is good, but instead of the bone, I wish there was a bamboo skewer, then this is going to be your kind of recipe. All right? So I really do hope you give that a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.